Right, let's go overseas. In just one day, more than 400 migrants have attempted a crossing of the English Channel via small boats into the United Kingdom. A record-breaking 409 people, including young children, were intercepted by British border forces, with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson noting that the UK has become a target, he says, and a magnet for those who would exploit vulnerable people in this way. Tim Montgomerie is a British political activist, blogger and columnist. He's a good mate of mine. He's best known too as the co-founder of the Centre for Social Justice. He joins me now from London. Great to have you on the show, Tim. Border issues. This is something we know very well here in Australia. If people are safe from persecution, which is the test under the UN Convention, and they're living somewhere in the EU, what's the magnet that's drawing them across to Britain? What sort of, as the Indonesian president used to say to us, what's the sugar on the table as to why they're attempting the crossing?
Well, first of all, Peter, it's lovely to be on your show. Thank you for having me again. I think there are a number of reasons why people are crossing the English Channel, which is the busiest shipping channel in the world. So it's not a particularly safe way for people to get to the UK, often in rubber dinghies, overcrowded. So very dangerous for these people. But I think it's partly the English language. A lot of these migrants are much more comfortable speaking English than a European language. And one of the issues that's sort of become quite a big issue in the UK is the issue of ID cards. On the continent of Europe, most people who want to access welfare or other services have to produce some sort of identification. The British tradition is we haven't had the need to produce your papers ever. And so people can get to the UK, have an illegal status, but still access welfare, hospital and other services.
I know the front bench of the Tory party, but also the back bench, very exercised about this. And obviously now you've got Brexit passed, but not yet done. How's this going to play out? What needs to be done?
Well, I think actually we need to do what Australia did a few years ago when Tony Abbott was Prime Minister, who's actually, interestingly, in the UK at the moment meeting British ministers. We need to make it very clear that if you try and attempt to cross the English Channel, and certainly if you get here, you will be sent back. Because that is the only way I think we will ultimately discourage people from crossing the Channel to get to the UK. At the moment, though, there is a lack of cooperation between the British and French authorities. And there is a lot of suspicion, certainly in Britain, that France isn't doing very much to stop these migrants leaving French border, French coastline, and make the hazardous journey to the UK. But send them home has got to be the message.
Well, here, it certainly worked here. We haven't had anywhere near the loss of life at sea as we had there for many years under Labor with those changes in Australia. I want to go to a debate. You might think it's something that wouldn't have gone around the world as quickly as it has, but this whole debate, BBC, the Proms concert, often played here in Australia, Rule Britannia, Land of Hope and Glory. I'm going to play a clip from your Prime Minister with some of the toughest language we've seen from him yet on this.
I think it's time we stopped our cringing embarrassment about our history, about our traditions and about our culture, and we stop this general bout of self-recrimination and wetness.
Yeah, a lot of Australians supported those comments. We haven't had that sort of strength on the culture fight here in Australia, I have to be honest and say. There's now calls for the BBC to be defunded. What's happening?
Well, the BBC, I think at the heart of the problem, Peter, is that the BBC is obsessed with diversity, but only a narrow kind of diversity. So, for example, they're very keen to have 50% women and a certain percentage of ethnic minorities. They also monitor the sexuality of their employees. But I know very well that many BBC newsrooms, for example, have no Brexiteers. People who supported Brexit at all. Very few people who, for example, go to church or who would side with Israel in the Middle East debate. And it's the lack of sort of intellectual diversity in BBC newsrooms that means I think they could take a decision like this on what's a very important British tradition, singing on the last night of the proms, and not realise that the vast majority of British people, which is proved by opinion polls, would be unhappy by that decision.
And also, I have to say, you know, a lot of the other fights might have seemed a bit intellectual or esoteric, but because this is a very popular grassroots, you know, middle class, dare I say, sort of concert that is in obviously London, but you know, goes right around the regions, watched by literally millions. It's cut through on this whole culture fight in a way that all the other stuff sort of struggled to, I think.
I think that's absolutely right. And of course, I know you're experiencing it, particularly in Victoria at the moment, but so many of us have been shut in and we've all sort of lacked these sort of public gatherings where we can join with other citizens in forms of celebration. And so when something as important and central as last night of the proms is taken away from us during this COVID moment, it sort of feels like it's more offensive to us, and we feel like we've been robbed of something that, you know, matters to a great deal of Britons. Not every Briton. Some Britons find it jingoistic, but those people who find it jingoistic just seem to be overrepresented at the top of the BBC.
Yeah, and they just don't like Britain, full stop. Quickly, Boris Johnson's Conservative Party leaps and bounds ahead when it was led by Corbyn, when Labor was led by Corbyn, but Sir Keir Starmer's sort of tightened the race considerably. Is he cutting through?
I think he's much better than, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, let's say that, but anyone would be much better than Jeremy Corbyn. He's more of a mainstream Labour figure. But I think the increasing popularity of Labour really reflects more disappointment with Boris Johnson's government. We just discussed where, on an issue like the culture wars, Boris is doing okay. But on the general handling of the COVID crisis, there's an awful lot of disappointment. Britain has one of the higher death rates in Europe, one of the deepest recessions. There's complicated reasons for that. But I think it's British people's impatience with the government handling of that, and a large number of U-turns on policy, contrary to what Margaret Thatcher sort of presented the Conservative Party as, that have caused the narrowing of opinion polls.
And look, just before I go, you mentioned Tony Abbott. There's talk that he'll get some significant trade position with the British to you know, spruik British trade relationship. I know he'd love to see a free trade agreement between Britain and Australia. It seems even the Labor types in Britain can't bear the thought of someone like Tony Abbott, as conservative as he is, and he's kicked off a bit of a Twitter storm over there. I know that he's got a lot of friends in the Tory party, but it seems that, you know, the left are the left and they're haters wherever they are.
Absolutely, and just joining our conversations together, Peter, and the BBC, when they were talking about him, did a sort of a clip of, they clipped all his gaffes, or, you know, all the gaffes that they could find of his. There was no sort of fair assessment of someone who did, you know, had achievements as well as failures when he was Australian Prime Minister. I personally would love to see Tony Abbott undertake that role. He loves Britain as he loves Australia. He's very committed to Brexit. And Britain, because of our long membership of the European Union, don't have a history or an expertise in negotiating trade agreements. So having someone who did that, I think with Japan and South Korea, when he was your Prime Minister, would be a good thing for us to have.
China, Japan, South Korea, and stopping the boats, all things you could probably do with a bit of help on right now. Tim Montgomerie, thank you for your time.